Hello there friends, my name is Ray and this is just a video to talk about the philosophy Blizzard is following for their global cooldown changes. If you didn't know, Blizzard now have reverted the global cooldown change to racial abilities and non-use trinkets, which is great since honestly on the BFA servers, sometimes it felt so odd to pop so many various cooldowns and to just stand there and well basically do nothing. It made you fall asleep. However, this shows Blizzard is open to reverting these global cooldown changes. Or it was actually their intention to revert some of these global cooldown changes after receiving feedback and seeing how the global cooldown changes affect rotations and the quality of class choices like talents. And that's what I'm going to focus on here. What is their design philosophy with the global cooldown changes? Damn, I said changes a lot there, didn't I? So Wowhead actually made a summary of the dev interview which includes the global cooldown changes summarized, which I'm going to read out for you guys right now. Why would they make a change that people don't like or feel good? Taking away things will always feel bad in the short term. Things like have group, will travel had backlash when they were removed, but make the world so much smaller. There's a long-term goal and they know there's going to be bad in the short term. It doesn't mean that they made this change and they're going to ignore all the negative feedback. They're making some changes. Abilities like Heroic Leap, Inferno Strike are now off the global cooldown, Disengage for Hunters as well. Changes have been made to Bloodbath to make it more appealing to hit right away. They want to pull away from the power of second cooldowns that had some very negative consequences. What's the point of applying pressure when you're just waiting for your next set of cooldowns in PvP or in raiding when you pop your cooldowns and the boss targets you with an ability and ruins your pass with nothing you can do about it? The best feedback right now is to list where this class feels awkward. Ian has seen many times the Fury Warrior gif of hitting 4 cooldowns with 4 global cooldowns and they're keeping an eye on Fury. All specs have rotational adjustments to be made, and they're curious to hear what feels awkward and uncomfortable to use. Second category, utility buttons. It comes down to what sort of game World of Warcraft is. They see WoW as a series of rapid fire actions. When you can do both A and B instead of having to choose between them, it loses the decision to be made. If you're a Resto Druid healing a dungeon with the tank low on health and you're about 50% on your health and the boss drops fire under your feet, you can A. cast regrowth while standing in fire, B. move out the fire, cast rejuve and do something after, C. wild charge out of the fire but your tank will get no health. If all of those are under global cooldown, then it creates an interesting decision. So from this, we can see the issues with not having global cooldowns is not enough variety in talents, having many characters just being burst bots, and the fact that they want WoW to be a decision-making game rather than a reaction time based game, which is what invoked them to actually introduce these global cooldown changes, knowing that it will help. However, even with this explanation, people are still unhappy with the changes, as it just doesn't feel good to play with, which they acknowledge in the same interview. Over time, they have taken away various global cooldown changes, like for example, Avatar and Disengage, due to the community feedback, pretty damn quickly. The same with the racial global cooldowns in fact, which takes me onto my main point on what I think. Blizzard purposely put more abilities on the global cooldown than they envisioned for the game, knowing they will remove some abilities off the global cooldown in the future based on feedback they receive. Why would they want to do this though? The reason why they added so many various abilities onto the global cooldown is that they viewed having more abilities on the global cooldown better for class decision making. As Ian mentioned, they don't want the game to have reaction based gameplay, they want it to have decision based gameplay. And the more abilities which are on the global cooldown, more decisions the player needs to make, rather than just pressing buttons faster to play around a mechanic. Also, the more choice there will be in talents, rather than just picking the talents which stack up the most for burst damage. So what I think is, Blizzard are trying to push to the limit how many global cooldowns they can have in the game without the player base losing their utter shit. Also, if Blizzard took a different approach and didn't add too many global cooldowns, and then felt as if they needed to add more global cooldowns to their classes, for the classes to meet their vision for decision-making gameplay rather than reaction-based gameplay, this would cause much more of a backlash to the community than adding too many, then removing them after receiving feedback. To where I think if they added more over time, rather than taking away global cooldowns over time, this would result in them not getting the correct amount of global cooldowns on abilities due to the amount of negative feedback they would receive, even if they were to add simply one ability to the global cooldown. So to break all what I said down, essentially Blizzard are really pushing decision-making gameplay to the max through the use of global cooldowns on certain abilities, to a point where it's tolerable for the player base in the long term. However, is Blizzard's vision of having decision-based gameplay rather than reactive-based gameplay a good thing? Especially in the way Blizzard has to implement decision-based gameplay, which obviously people aren't taking very well. If we look at Mr. Pandaria, for example, the expansion was the epitome of reaction-based gameplay. Extremely fast rotations, not many things on the global cooldown, or at least not on long global cooldowns. Most classes could even move while casting, with filler abilities at least. There was also a lot of cooldown stacking. This expansion was regarded to have some of the best rotations in the game, universally, for all classes and specs, DPS specifically, in both PvE and PvP, and there wasn't ever any complaints of damn, I wish the classes were slower so I make decisions easier. Then in WoD, when the classes were made slower and pruned, that's when class complaints started to come in more and more regularly. So yeah, that's what I think Blizzard are doing regarding their design philosophy with the global cooldowns. So that's it friends, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like and all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.